from Microlink. I hope that you can all see and hear me properly. For those of you coming on that need captioning, please use the CC button. We have Zoom captioning running. We've got a BSL interpreter, the wonderful Tony, on my left here. Thank you very much. Matching blues, we love that. We've also got, if you've got any questions that you want to ask, please pop them in the Q&A, and my lovely assistant, Azadeh, who will kill me for calling her that, will happily tell me what the questions are, and we'll see if we can get them answered. What we're actually going to start this session with is the video of an interview that I did with Sir Robert Buckland to give you some context. About 6 or 7 weeks ago, Sir Robert was asked by the government, Rishi Sunak, to do a review of the employment gap for people with autism. Now, roughly, we're looking at 5.8%. Well, actually, that's quite precise, isn't it? But 5.8% of young people who are autistic working, which means that there's around 94% that aren't. Not all of those are going to want to, not all of those are going to be able to. But what we're doing here is supporting Sir Robert with the idea that we can encourage companies to look at autistic young people, to look at people in their local communities, to connect with them, and there's various methods that we can do that, to get them into work, if they want to work, to actually help the economy and stimulate it. We've got somebody coming on from Brewhouse and Kitchen. We've got somebody from DFN Foundation Project Search. We've got the wonderful Tori from EY talking about centres of excellence where they use autistic people coming in. Where does the 5.8% come from? It very much depends, Mark. Thank you for your question. It very much depends on where you're looking at the statistics, if you're looking at the overall population, or you're looking at the working population, and whether you're considering the socially inactive amongst that. Economically inactive, I beg your pardon. I will check though. We've got James on. James from Autistica will be joining us shortly as well, so we can put that question to him. In the meantime, Azadeh, could you actually run the interview that I did with Sir Robert, which kind of talks a bit about what the review is for and what we're looking to achieve. So if I can pass you over to Azadeh, that'd be wonderful.
Hi, it's good to see you. My name is Robert Buckland, and I'm chair of an independent review into autism and employment opportunities that I've been asked to do on behalf of the government. I'll be working with Autistica, our leading autism research charity, and indeed other groups and bodies to gather evidence to make the case for how I think business industry and the whole of the employment sector can do much more to unleash the potential of autistic people. I'm delighted to chair the All-Party Group on Autism here in Parliament and the All-Party Group on Learning Disabilities. I'm the Conservative MP for South Swindon and former Lord Chancellor and Secretary of State for Wales, so I know something about how government works as well. I want to use all my own experiences together with my personal family experiences of autism to best effect, to try and make a difference to thousands of lives.
So, Robert, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Good to see you.
I wanted to ask why this review's come about, and why now? What's changing?
Well, I think now is the time for us to bring together the power of business and industry to really achieve a culture change in terms of the recruitment and then the retention of autistic people in work. We know the figures are shocking. Only 2 out of 10 adults, autistic adults, are in work.
Wow.
2 out of 10. Now, that is just, we're letting them know. It's not their fault. There are barriers there that mean that either it's very difficult to get through the recruitment process, or when they get the job, there's no accommodation for those reasonable adjustments that I think will unleash even more potential. And that's why I think we need to move now. The government's rightly talking about economic inactivity and the problem that we have about 1 million vacancies, and yet we still have people who won't in work. We've got to change that. And I can't think of a better place to start than with autism. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of adults who have great potential. Their minds are amazing, they're diverse, And in a nutshell, I want to change the perception of autism from being one of risk to being one of opportunity. If we can do that with employers and business and industry, then I think we're going to reap the benefits in the next few years. And I don't see why we need to wait. You know, if we can bring forward some suggestions, some new suggestions, some constructive ideas about the way in which business can sort of use best practice, then I think we can start to see those changes happen.
Can I just ask you quickly, in terms of the risk, what do you think employers think the risk is?
I think they associate some of it with perhaps unpredictability, dare I say, a sort of an unknown. You know, that person might be working well now, but what happens if there's an episode or something happens? You know, there are all sorts of, I think, misperceptions that I think it frankly is, and I think it can be remedied. But I think the way we do that is by building on the work of disability confident, access to work. We know that these great programs are out there, but it's not just about government. I think it's about business and industry itself. And we've got some great examples. There's some, you know, large organisations, some smaller organisations doing it well. And I've seen great examples where autistic people are a valued part of the workforce. Why can't we make that universal? That's really the aim of the work that I'm doing with the government and with Autistica, and indeed the other autism charities who will play their part, and as we gather the evidence in the months ahead.
Wonderful. In terms of Autistica, they're very much more research-based, aren't they?
Yes.
How do you think that will help?
I think that's good, because I think they look at the numbers, they look at the evidence, they analyse it, they crunch it, they come up with, I think, evidence-based solutions. I like working with them. I think the family of autism charities we have in the UK is a good one. Yes, I think people have different approaches to different problems.
Oops.
5 out of 10, autism 2 out of 10. So we need to be at least getting up to the disability level, which is 5 out of 10. In order for us to, you know, start to make inroads into this. But I think we need to be ambitious, don't we?
Absolutely.
And we need to work out whether, you know, or everybody needs to be coming up from that 5 out of 10 mark. And, you know, my view is that we've got to work towards that. We've got to start now. So whilst autism is coming from a long way back, I believe that with the adjustments that I think can be made, we can start to eat into that figure and start to see an increase in the numbers.
I mean, I'm sure you have come across DFN Project Search, the work that they do. They take their 5%, turn it into 70% through supported internships.
It's amazing.
Which is, it's stunning.
So it's a very good example there of best practice and how it can be done. There are other examples I'm hearing about from people who've gone in touch with me, you know, with internships and work experience and the successful completion of those. You know, with the right sort of
job coaches, I think,
exactly. With the right sort of support and encouragement beforehand, you can turn, you know, what otherwise is going to be a dropout rate that is concerning into something much more, you know, productive.
And you know what? I actually think it will work for people who are allegedly, let's say, neurotypical as well.
Yes.
Because the extra support that a business gives their staff is of expecting that finished article right from day one means that younger people coming out, I mean, I left school at 16. I mean, I was a child thrust into a bank. We didn't have any work experience. I didn't know how to dress, how to behave, nothing. And I think we're failing a lot of people like that. So I think the reviews can be very exciting.
I agree. Well, I hope so. And I hope that many more people will benefit as a result of the work that we do. And, you know, I'm looking forward to the months ahead. It's going to be, I think, an educative period for all of us. We're going to learn a lot, but I think at the end, I want to be able to do a lot. To make
it's all about the doing.
It is, and that's why I've been delighted to be asked by the Prime Minister and the Work and Pension Secretary to do this. I want to leave something that will make a difference for hundreds of thousands of people whose potential must be realised, deserves to be realised. It's, you know, as I keep on saying, it's not their fault that things are not working.
It's crazy to even think it would be
for them. So let's turn risk into opportunity. And through that, we can transform many, many lives.
Can I just ask on a personal level, your daughter's on the spectrum?
Yes, indeed, yes. Whilst my daughter has a number of other comorbidities, that makes me think about people at all stages, at all levels, and all ranges of the spectrum. And we have to think of a system that does understand those with comorbidities as well. That's more of a challenge, but that shouldn't stop us from making progress more generally across the piece when supporting autistic people. So I suppose from my own personal experience, my own personal story, if you like, I've been moved to campaign on this for a number of years, to chair the autism group, now once again after my time in government, to work hard for neurodiversity issues in government when I was Justice Secretary, and to now chair this review. So I'm delighted that I've been able to use my experiences, I hope, to best effect to help change lives.
Well, I know we're excited about the outcomes. Can we come talk to you again once the review's been done?
Oh, yes.
Because that action plan is something that we want to get involved in.
Absolutely right. I'd love to talk to you because it's all about, as you say, action.
It is.
This will only work if the words on a page can become reality. So that's really what I've always been about in politics and government, and that's what I would hope and expect the outcome of this review to produce.
Fabulous.
That's right.
So, Robert, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, wasn't that fabulous? It's always nice to see that the government have taken this quite seriously. We know that there are some challenges in the support and the process, and certainly part of the review that Sir Robert's undertaking will be looking at how we can work with business to inform and to share some best practice, to look at some of the challenges, to look at the low-hanging fruit, if you like. It's maybe not the right expression, but to encourage individuals with autism to look at the world of work, to make them feel a lot more welcome. And I'm delighted today to be joined by Tori Roberts from Ernst & Young, or EY, talking about their Centre of Excellence in, where is it? Manchester. Tori, can you tell me a bit about what you're doing and why you're doing it?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to talk to you all today. We have a neurodiverse Centre of Excellence in Manchester for UK and Ireland, but those centres, the NCOEs, because it's a mouthful if I keep saying the full title, the NCOEs, we actually have 19 of them across EY now in 8 different countries. Wow. And we do this to bring in diversity of thought into everything we do at EY. Do you want me to explain more about them?
Please, if you can do.
Okay, so I've been at EY my whole career. I'm basically a technologist and I lead a technology team, and I want to bring about diversity of thought into technology. That's race, that's gender, but that's definitely diversity of thought. So we at EY have already been celebrating neurodiversity and valuing different thinking. We know that it's a business imperative to have diverse teams. Actually, it supports business, it supports commerciality of our business. So we always talk about belonging and being our true authentic self at work, and we really work hard across all different characteristics. With neurodiversity, we have an active community. We have nearly 2,000 or more members in our neurodiversity community, which is like an ERG group, an employee resource group, that advocates, support and listen to those with lived experiences, or maybe someone who wants to be an ally or a parent and carer. And then we do the NCOEs, which is about actually finding additional individuals to join our business who wouldn't have maybe thought of coming to EY, who probably may not have achieved through our recruitment process. And so that's what the NCOE is about, is attracting a new talent pool, working with great organisations across our ecosystem, so charities and non-profits particularly, but universities and other partners and alliances and clients that we work with, to make sure that we find individuals, maybe they've had barriers to work, maybe they've had work trauma, but they have a passion for tech. This is a career in technology. It's a career for, as it is for anyone. It's joining EY, having a career, working on projects, working in that environment, a corporate environment, but we're here to be able to provide, or aim to provide, the psychological safety so that you can thrive. So we put in additional support into the NCOE to make that happen.
I mean, that's wonderful. One of the things that Sir Robert was talking about is a valued part of the workforce. And certainly when we've been talking, Tori, this isn't a pity job. This is just you adjusting your recruitment and really focusing on these individuals to make sure that they've got the best experience to move into the mainstream business world.
Well, absolutely. So we know that at least 15-20% of our society is neurodivergent. And so we talk about neurodiversity as a whole rather than a particular condition, and because of co-occurrence and individual needs. We have successful autism at work programs in Newcastle and elsewhere. We have our community of people who share their experiences and tell their stories about dyslexia or dyspraxia and ADHD. And we focus in on supporting the individuals in our Neurodiverse Centre of Excellence for their individual needs and what they bring to our business. There's a phrase I like to use. We talk about people's strengths, but we don't shy away from their challenges. So we'll support where we need to, but let's talk about the strengths. And those strengths, as we know, are needed in businesses like ours. You could be talking about creativity, innovation, 3D thinking, empathy. I mean, the list goes on. There's lots of skills that we're looking for that actually the UN has listed as skills for the future. And we know that particularly dyslexia and some other traits also have a lot of similarity to those skills from the future. So this is a business opportunity. It is not a checkbox activity.
Which I love. And you mentioned then about the UN. You've done something with the World Economic Forum, haven't you, recently?
Yes. So the World Economic Forum has just announced their first 8 DEI lighthouses, which is where they've gone and assessed against a very clear framework for initiatives that are global and long-term sustainable value programs. And the NCOE, as a global long-term investment program, was recognised as one of their first DEI lighthouses,
Wow.
which we're really proud of. It shows that what we're doing is working. We're constantly learning.
Yeah.
It hasn't always been easy, but what we're doing is going in the right direction, and we're listening to our community, and we're adapting where we can to make life in corporate EY as safe and you can thrive. Use your strengths and skills.
I love that. I mean, when we talked again, we were talking about how this isn't just for the new people that are coming into the business. It gives line managers the confidence and strength to work with individuals who may have been challenging or having challenging behaviours within the environment, and perhaps helping those individuals as well to thrive.
Yeah, so, you know, we've still got a long way to go. We're all on a journey of making sure that we're all more neuro-inclusive. But the NCOE is an opportunity for us to pilot and trial out processes, ways of working, and then we work with our wider business. We recruit thousands of people every year, so we have nearly 400,000 globally. So we work with our wider businesses on how do we take the learnings and the time investment and the extra support that we give, how can we adapt some of that into best practice into the wider business? And we work very closely, as I said, with our ERG group, the neurodiversity community, on how do we support our existing individuals as well as those that have applied to join us in the NCOE.
And I love the fact that you're not just doing it in the UK, because certainly some of the work that Microlink does is moving out into the global market space. And we've got countries that are incredibly immature when it comes to disability and how they treat people with conditions and disabilities themselves. So it's really interesting to see that you've gone out to India, for example, with your ERGs, with this program. So you're actually becoming more inclusive ahead of the game, which I love.
Yeah, so the NCOE initiative started in America in 2016, which is why we've built and learned so much from it over this time. But as we say, we're in about 8 different countries as an NCOE, and also the community is also in a number of countries around the world. So we've US, Canada, Costa Rica, India, Poland, Spain. And yes, culturally and society-wise, there is a great difference. You know, even though we speak the same language as the Americans, there's still differences with the way things need to be set up, whether it's legal or society or language. So we work very specifically with our UK and Ireland ecosystem on how we work here, but we have that learning, we have that years of support that we put in place, and touching into areas, as you say, that are still maturing, like India, which has been really interesting.
Thank you ever so much for that, Tori. Tori, if I could move on to our second lady, Michelle. Ms. Tiller comes from Brewhouse and Kitchen, which is based down in Dorset. I always say it with that accent. I don't mean to be taking the mickey or anything. It's just how I say Dorset. It is Dorset, isn't it?
It is. Well, we're actually across the country. So we go right the way up to Chester. We've got one in Cardiff, some in London, but we have 4 in Dorset, and our founder's from Dorset. So
for the people who don't know, for the people who haven't yet visited you, because I'm sure we're all going to rush out and visit you now, what do you do? What is Brew House and Kitchen, please?
So we're a 23 strong brew pub chain, and we have a point of difference where each of our brew pubs have a brewery on site with their own brewer. So we brew our own, we brew our own beer. You know, our food is very is beer infused. And we do sort of experience days and masterclasses, so you can actually come in and brew your own beer. And it'll be on sale in the pub a few weeks later.
I'm there. That sounds fabulous.
I don't drink, but it is a really fun day, whether you drink beer or not. I really enjoyed it. But we do gin masterclasses and beer and whiskey and things like that. So yeah,
I'm falling a little bit more in love with you every minute, Michelle, I have to say. So can you tell me a bit about, because we were talking as part of a sort of a Dorset community of employers, and you mentioned that you'd recruited, I think it was a young man, wasn't it? Because the hospitality industry, you're struggling to find across the board to find staff. So can you tell me a little about what happened?
Yeah, so this is so with Dorset Careers Hub, we've signed up to a Removing Barriers project. So we were already committed and a disability confident level 1 employer, but we wanted obviously to go further. That, you know, that was just scratching the surface really, and we wanted to work towards level 3 and being a leader. So we signed up to a project working with Dorset Careers, but it very much is across all of our brew pubs. So we're reflecting it across the country. We've done a lot of work since myself and our people director Jodie joined the business just over a year ago. So we've set up a work experience program. So very much, you know, introducing people to the world of hospitality, obviously, and work. We've done a lot of work with some sort of special educational providers, you know, offering work experience, because I think they were shocked and surprised. We actually went out to a couple of them ourselves and said, how can we work with you? And then the others were like, well, would you work with our schools? And we're like, well, yeah, of course, you know, we really are open to all. And the young man in question, he came to us through a post-16 program with a local school. Was just fantastic. The first time I met him, he was chat for an hour. He'd been into the environment, he loved the environment, he felt confident in the environment, which I think is a massive, you know, first step, you know, if we're talking about neurodiversity. And he came and did work experience with us, and then we were able to offer him permanent employment, which was just brilliant.
I think that's lovely. Now, you told me a story about there was something that the other guys were doing, and I can't remember whether it was they were going out on cigarette breaks or something changed in the work environment, and you had to manage that, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, we've learned a lot through our experience with him, ourselves, and his school. Because when he came and did work experience, he was doing kind of hours during the day. So he was there sort of 12 till 5-ish, not particularly busy during the day. So it absolutely worked for him. When we employed him, he was doing evenings, and he was doing some of those busy shifts where maybe there was a band playing or we were particularly busy. And his sensory, you know, just went into overload. So we made some adjustments with that. But then there was an occasion where there was a few of them on shift and all behind the bar, and the rest of them all went off and left him on his own. And he just found it really difficult because nobody had explained to him where they were going, when they would have been back. So all that was going through his mind, and he was like, and I'm on my own, and I'm really busy, and all of it together kind of built up for him, bless him. So it was just, you know, speaking to the team around that impact. So, you know, if he'd known he was going to be on his own for an hour, he would have been absolutely fine, as he knew. So it's just those real simple, you know, educational pieces and adjustments, really.
And that cost you nothing?
No, And it hasn't
So,
cost us, all of it hasn't cost us a penny.
Which is fantastic. So you're recruiting somebody for free, you're keeping them for, I mean, obviously you're paying salaries and the rest of it, but you're learning from the experience, and you've got a member of staff that's going to be really loyal and stick with you, that enjoys what he's doing. I mean, what a winner.
Absolutely. And he started with the other learning was, you know, he started just before Christmas, which I think the excitement all got a bit too much for all of us.
Yes.
And really, was that the best time for him to start in a busy pub? Potentially not. But now, I mean, he's flying. He's been with us like just before Christmas. We have what we call B&K Legends, which are monthly awards where colleagues, managers can put forward any of their colleagues with something brilliant, you know, if they deliver great service or they go above and beyond. And a couple of months ago, he was actually nominated by one of his colleagues. And it, like, I think I was more chuffed than he was, really, because it was just it was just wonderful. And to see the impact that it had on him, on his parents, you know, we give them like a gift voucher through our rewards scheme, so they can go and treat themselves to something they want, and then they're celebrated within the business as well. So yeah, fantastic achievement.
So when's your next recruits going to come on board, do you think? Do you think that this will be adopted throughout the country within your firm?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what Tori was alluding to, really, we just want to make it a way of life. It just, you know, culture. I think it's especially important to Gen Z and Gen Alpha that are coming up quickly behind them. Sorry, there is. They're
so
quickly
behind
approaching. But it's important, I think, that they see their employer embracing everybody, because everybody has got something to offer. We're all different. You know, I think there was an assumption that from a few people in the business that, well, if you're autistic, how could you work in a pub? You know, that won't work. That wouldn't work. And no, it won't work for some autistic people, but it will work for many autistic people. So it's just breaking down kind of anyone that has sort of barriers to that. We have signed a partnership with Autism Unlimited, so we offer some
wonderful
e-learning to anybody, not just our managers, to anyone that's particularly passionate about it. Yeah, we're just constantly sort of working, moving forward.
I love that story.
And not just autism, you know, we've just recruited somebody with Down syndrome in one of our brew pubs. So yeah, no limits.
Everybody's welcome.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's exactly how it should be. And it segues beautifully into our next talker. But I wanted to say thank you, Michelle. If that e-learning is really open to everybody, can you share it with this lot, or perhaps with us, so we can put it out in a resource page? And everybody who hasn't been to a brew house and kitchen, perhaps we should all get together and go and have a beer and gin day. I can see Claire, you're up for this, aren't you, Claire? Yeah, Claire's absolutely up for it. I love that. Michelle, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
If we can move on to Claire Cookson. Claire Cookson is the CEO of DFN Project Search. It was mentioned in the interview I did with Sir Robert. I've known Project Search for more than a dozen years. They were one of the first commercial sites, was down with GSK, one of the companies that Microlink partners with. And I love their work. I'm going to let Claire give you a potted history of what they do and actually the impact of what they do. Claire.
Thank you so much. It's so brilliant to be with everybody today. Yes, can't wait to come to that pub, one of your pubs, Michelle. So DFM Project Search, it's a year-long supported internship. It's for young adults who have a learning disability, autism spectrum condition, or both. And it is for people in their last year of education. And, you know, everybody on this call will know that that might look different according to their own personal journey. You can be funded till you're 24 if you have an education, health and care plan. And the whole principle, and Tracy, she's known Project Search longer than I have, the whole principle is that we bring a partnership together. We bring a partnership of an education provider. Within that partnership is a host business, adult supported employment for job coaches, Department for Work and Pensions, and local authorities. And for each of those partners comes together around one host business. We place between 8 and 12 young adults who have a learning disability or autism spectrum condition, and they learn and work on that host business site for a full academic year. They go September through to June, July. So Robert talked about evidence base and kind of what works, and that is DFM Project Search. We take data all the way through the process, and we have some critical success factors that we measure against. And in principle, they are every young adult on programme, we want to see them getting a full-time paid job in an integrated setting, paid at least the prevailing wage for their age on a non-seasonal contract. And, you know, this is about a career job. We don't talk about career jobs very often with people with a learning disability, and we absolutely have to, because these young adults on DFM Project Search are sensational. They add huge value to every organisation that we partner with. Just to give you an idea of scale, so we have 120 host business sites right now with just under 1,000 young adults on programme. That's 120 partnerships,
Wow.
more than 120 education providers, more than 120 host businesses in truth, because we have externships, which are third placement rotations. The national data for people who have a learning disability or autism, who are known to their adult services, who have an education, health and care plan, the national data is 4.8% will get a job, not full-time, it's just a job. On DFM Project Search, 70% get jobs, 60% get full-time paid jobs, integrated setting, paid the prevailing wage on a non-seasonal contract. And just to break that down, over the last 5 years, our interns have gone into 230 different sectors. So we are looking at, is there good job development, right? We don't want people to be pigeonholed. We want to really understand their vocational profile. We design their rotations. They do 3 rotations across a large scale host business. And we're really training, and I use the we, royal we, they are these amazing job coaches and tutors are training adults for their placements. Within that partnership around, so if we use GSK as an example, at GSK, we have a tutor on site all day, every day from the education provider who partner with us on that site. We have 2 job coaches on site who are trained in systematic instruction. They're there all day, every day. They come from an adult supported employment agency, and they are part funded by DWP, Access to Work, and a little bit funded by the education and local authority. We have DFM Project Search is a really methodical and evidence-based model. We train all of our partners to deliver that model. We then do training all the way through the year. We take data all the way through. We want to know what are people's primary and secondary diagnosis. How many are male, how many female, how many are from ethnic minority groups, how many from white European backgrounds. We want to know what internships did they do, and then what role did they get. We take data 9 months after our interns graduate, because we don't just want to know, did they get a job? We want to know, did they stay in their job? And then we also try and stay in touch with them and take their longitudinal data. They change organizations. We have many case studies now about whole systems change, and that's within NHS actually. So we have a strategic relationship with NHS England, and we've seen real whole systems change. But we also have relationships with big private sector organizations, and again we're finding the same. What we see in every organization that we partner with, productivity goes up in a department that you put a young adult with a learning disability or autism, partly because they come in with like all of the enthusiasm and the rigor to learn these roles, and everybody has to up their game slightly because these brilliant young people are doing it. And secondly, because everybody around them in that host department, they are now contributing to this life-changing opportunity, and you see it in real terms, you feel it. And so actually coming to work then feels very different and perhaps a bit more purposeful. We find that people start to disclose their own hidden disabilities because they're working for an organisation that is demonstrating that they really value neurodivergence and they value diversity. We see that staff satisfaction goes up, and we see that retention goes up. You know, it's so incredible. And what we then see, in part of that whole systems change, we train everybody around recruitment and inclusive recruitment, and what does good in-work practice look like for the long term. And so actually that doesn't just benefit people with a learning disability or autism, it benefits everybody. And so again, we see real amazing changes to recruitment and inclusion. And then things like embedded job coaching. How incredible is that? So some of our employers now, they've been with us many, many years. They've gone on to recruit, you know, they've benefited from this incredible talent that comes through DFM Project Search. And some of our employers then have used embedded job coaches. They've funded them. And guess what? They don't just support graduates of DFM Project Search. They support everybody.
Everyone.
Who doesn't need support in their jobs?
Of
I
course.
haven't met anybody. I certainly do every single day. And so we're seeing this massive change. And, you know, we also have worked with the DFE, Department for Education, who have launched a new commission where they want to see the number of interns doubling, number of supported interns doubling by March 2025. This is amazing. This is the first time, I think, that the Department for Education have said, hang on a minute, this really works. We really want to be ambitious. We've set the first ever standard quality assurance standards for supported internships, and the DFE have kept the standards super high. They want to see 70% of people with a learning disability, autism, going into jobs. We've never had this before. Now is the time. Now is the time. We're going to stop talking about it and we're going to just start doing it. As a country. And these young adults, you know, certainly at DFM Project Search, you know, we have absolutely recruited young adults who've been through the programme. You know, so as an employer, I can tell you the difference that it's made to our organisation. And I was actually hoping to have a colleague with me, and very sadly he's ill and can't make it, which is such a shame, because, you know, he's a million times better than I am.
Well, you mentioned a young lady, and you shared a video of Alex.
Yeah.
And I have to say, in all my time, I mean, I've got a background of, I'm not going to tell you how many years, but a lot in recruitment. And I would never have thought somebody, and this is perhaps just me, somebody with Downs, would ever be looking at a career, would ever be looking at a job. And there's a lot of soft bigotry that's inbuilt, that's kind of an unconscious bias, that these poor little poppets need to stay at home and be looked after. And the reality is so different. And when you meet somebody like Alex, who is obviously somebody who has Downs, but she's in a company where she's thriving. She went through a supported internship, and the video talks about at the end of that process, the end of her learning, she had 4 or 5 job offers, chose the particular company, Marriott, chose them because she was going to get a career. And that's so damned exciting.
Can we actually share that video? Perfect.
We can on the resource page for sure.
Yeah.
We will send that out because it is
Claire,
awesome to see.
Claire, the project search doesn't just sound amazing. It is amazing. And a shout out to you. You won the award from Business Disability Forum last month. Well deserved. I have 2 questions. How are you funded? And how do you scale up this from 1,000 people a year to 100,000? I mean, it is really a serious problem we have to fix.
Yeah.
You have the answer because you've just demonstrated it works. So what next?
Yeah, you're so right. So for us as a charity, the majority of our funding comes through fundraising. We fundraise like crazy. We are a license model, so people will buy the rights to that license, but it's a very small amount of money, and it, you know, nowhere near covers our operating costs. So we fundraise like mad, and we've got some really committed funders. I have to say, we're working with a lot of trusts and foundations, and some of them are the What Works Centre for Government. How do we scale is an amazing question. So we will be opening 45 new DFM Project Search sites in September. So we'll have, just under about 160 for September. We are now training every local authority, education local authority, so 153, on what is really high quality supported internship. And through that, we hope to set up more. I think we want to have more strategic conversations with the government about how do we, because one of the barriers to all of this actually is education funding. Where you live in the country has a big impact on that. We'd love to work with the government on a fair funding formula so that every education provider, we want to see this on every college pathway. We want to know in every local offer that we have a presumption of employment for everybody. And I guess then, Lisa, we then sort of are able to say, right, come on, we know that this model works, partner with us. And that's the great thing about DFM Project Search. This isn't DFM Project Search delivering it, it's local education providers and supported employment providers and local employers, but using a methodology that we know works. And let us support people on data and things like that. And, you know, it's great in terms of ESG, we can evidence ESG, we know exactly how females are performing against males, and we get into that detail and we make sure that we expose there's any sort of variations, and then we do something about it. We run great training. We hold people with us, I guess, to account. And, you know, the spirit of DFM Project Search, and I promised to stop then, is continuous improvement, right? Every partner commits to continuous improvement, because that's what these young adults deserve.
So it's not just the government, it's not the funding, it's not the program. What can the employers do to help you with this? Because that's the biggest part of it. There's got to be jobs for these people. There are. The digital world we live in is it's begging for talent, but they're not able to find them. So what can the employers do?
Okay, so there's a few things. Number one, partner with us to run supported internships. That is a way of helping. Some organizations might say, well, we can't host 12 young adults, 10 to 12 young adults. Well, the other organizations can be like a hub and spoke. So we'd have a main DFM Project Search site with a business advisory group around them. They might be able to offer what we call externships. Number three, be a recruiter. So we've launched #Inclusion Revolution. Benefit from these young adults. They have never been more employable than they are when they complete this supported internship. Number four, we're running employer champion training. This is free to every organization. It is accredited, and it's 2.5 hours where we really unpick what is transition to employment. Let's ask all those uncomfortable questions. Let's bash up what is appropriate to say and what's not, because sometimes people don't want to engage with this because they're worried about getting it wrong. So we're going to help you get it right. And then lastly, be a champion in your networks. If you're part of great networks in and outside of your organization, make them aware of what supported internships, adjusted apprenticeships, connect and reflect the community in which you work. Make sure the workforce reflects that community. But yeah, the support is there in truth. Just partner.
We're actually going to obviously send out all of this information in the resources page, Claire, because you and I have talked over a number of years, but I would love to see more people taking action on this to actually understand how straightforward it is to recruit and to enjoy these young people within your organization, and benefit from not having to pay the training, not having to pay the support, not having to pay them. Obviously you're paying them when they go full time, but all of the recruitment costs, everything else, they're actually developing people internally that are going to be long-term employees. And we know, we've got the facts and figures, or BDF do, of what the loyalty is like, how they take far less time off sick. They're always on time. They're very conscientious. I say they, it's an incorrect way to phrase it, but the supported interns are an amazing resource. Why would you not do this? It seems madness. Now, we're actually looking to see if we can get Sir Robert. I understand that he might be on the webinar at the moment, but if we can show the James Cusack interview first, while we see if we can find him. Thank you so much, Claire. I really appreciate you coming on board, and I think it's really good to understand how straightforward this is. It does take effort, and the difference really, I guess, between doing this kind of recruitment is that it's very conscious recruitment. You're always looking at the outputs rather than just the inputs. You don't care whether somebody can type 50 words a minute. You just care that they produce the document in a timely fashion. So teach them how to do that. So we're going to look. James Cusack is a gentleman from Autistica. We've got James here at the moment. He'll be talking shortly afterwards. We haven't got very long. But what Autistica do as a charity, it's very focused on autism. James is a CEO with autism and talks about it very freely. It's all evidence-based. And again, that's what we go back to with DFN, with Autistica, is that this isn't a nice to do, this is a must do, but it's evidence-based so that you know that it works. But James, we're just going to show the video, and then if we've got some questions, can we come back to you? Can we show that as a day, please?
Chief Executive of Autistica, which is the UK's leading autism research and campaign charity. I'm also autistic myself, and I've worked in autism research and policy and directly with autistic people.
Hi, it's Tracy Abbott from Microlink. It's wonderful to meet you. We wanted to have a quick talk with you today about your involvement in Sir Robert Buckland's review of the employment gap with autistic people. I understand it's quite huge, and you're going to be doing a review with him. And what was your involvement? How did you get involved initially?
So Robert and I have been talking for some time about how we can best ensure that autistic people can live a better life. And one of the biggest barriers that we know that autistic people face is in terms of employment. And we've got good data on this actually that shows, depending on what year you look at, between about 2 in 10 to 3 in 10 autistic people are currently in work, which means that
only 2 in 10.
Yeah, which means that between 8 in 10 and 7 in 10 of autistic people are not in work. And so we want to understand why that's the case, because we know that accessing work allows you to have your own independence. Access to quality of life is an enabler of better health outcomes, and also affects really quite major things like life expectancy.
Is there a kind of an average age for individuals getting into work, for example?
Well, I think it differs for different autistic people, and of course there's a huge number of autistic people who we know don't even know that they're autistic.
Oh, so they don't even suspect. It's not a question of not having a diagnosis. They don't even think that they need a diagnosis.
Well, they're not even aware. They're not even aware, or they might be suspected they are, but they haven't gone through the process of getting a diagnosis. What we want to have happen is for the autistic people who are going through childhood and young adulthood to feel that the world of work is accessible to them. And so what we're trying to do is to create environments working environments which will enable that to be the case. And the truth is, we are actually finding some really exciting and evidence-based and impactful ways that will enable us to ensure that's the case. And there's many examples of how we can do this effectively for organisations and businesses of all sorts.
But you had an example, didn't you? Could you share a bit about what you did with Deutsche Bank, for example?
So one of the things that we did with Deutsche Bank was we led an evaluation, which was really about a research project, which was really about trying to understand how internship schemes would work within the business. It's really important. It's very easy to do things like an internship scheme, but it's important to understand what does and doesn't work. As a research charity, that's something that we're really, really passionate about. So we did what we call a qualitative research study with them, which is that we try to understand in quite a comprehensive ways the views and the experiences of the autistic people involved in the internship scheme, and all of the staff from Deutsche Bank who were working closely with the autistic interns as well. And what we found was that the experience was overwhelmingly positive for everyone involved. But also there were some complexities that they maybe didn't realise about, and it was a huge learning experience for the organisation. And what we are trying to do, hopefully through this review, is to ensure that the learnings which are being generated both at Deutsche Bank but across the UK and across the world are readily available to businesses. Because if you can get this right, and if you can understand how to change the working environment, your approach to recruitment, how you manage autistic people, make adjustments for autistic people, there's a huge opportunity for autistic to access work. It's also a huge opportunity for businesses to create a more diverse workforce, but also a more talented workforce, which will only help to improve performance.
James, I wanted to talk to you about the fact that you're the first openly autistic individual as a CEO of a charity. How did that come about? Not how did it come about you're autistic, but how did you get to be a CEO? What's the charity all about?
So, well, I was diagnosed as being autistic when I was 12, but it was pretty well understood that from quite a young age I was different developmentally. So I went to a specialist nursery at quite a young age, and I guess being autistic, and then I ended up in a base for children who were on the autism spectrum as a teenager, and getting that support put me in a very fortunate position because it enabled me to go on to achieve the qualifications which at one point we didn't necessarily think I was going to go on to achieve. But it also created a huge passion for me around how we improve outcomes for all autistic people. So I grew up alongside a number of autistic people in Aberdeen, and I often think about their lives and about the things that we need to do to ensure that we remove barriers for all the different types of autistic people that we know exists. And so I worked, I did a degree and a PhD at the University of Aberdeen looking at autism and a postdoc, but I'd also been involved in autism policy and worked directly with autistic people in a range of different roles. Had then been approached by Autistica about being their director of research, and did that role for 5 years. So helped implement the first autism network, autism research network, and looked at some quite key initiatives around really big, serious issues like early death and autism, understanding research priorities for autistic people and their families. And then the chief executive position became available, and it was a fully open process, and I applied for it, and I was lucky enough to be given the job. And it's very, very exciting from my perspective, because there's a huge amount to do. Since I've become chief executive, we've set really ambitious goals for what we'd like to see society achieve for autistic people. So we've got 6 ambitious 2030 goals. One of them is focused on employment and how we believe that it should be possible to double the rate of employment for autistic people by 2030.
Can I ask, what is the employment rate? Because I'm aware for people with learning difficulties, for example, we're looking at probably as low as 5 to 7%. I think it's a little higher for people with autism. So
according to figures from the ONS, it varies somewhere between 2 in 10 and 3 in 10 of autistic people are currently in work. And so we're really lucky now. We have quite good data which will help us to understand this issue and to track how as a society we're making progress towards closing that gap. Just to draw a comparison, we know that 5 in 10 of disabled people are currently in work, and 8 out of 10 of the general population are currently accessing work. So we have a long way to go to try and bridge that gap for autistic people, but there are huge opportunities and things that we can do that will enable us to bridge that gap.
How do you, as Autistica, how do you actually engage with companies yourself? Is it purely on the research side?
So we do a range of different, we engage with organisations in a range of different ways. So first of all, we have our research projects that we're working on. So we have initiatives specifically testing different solutions for working with autistic people. We're creating an index, which will be which in the first instance will be freely available, which we're looking at implementing to measure how different companies can change their employment practices and benefit from the available evidence that's out there to try and create some real momentum. The reality is there's amazing amounts of good practice going on across the UK and across the world. We want to make sure that everyone has it available and able to implement, because when we talk with companies around this, we see a huge degree of excitement around this area, but also I think a certain degree of anxiety as well. And so what we want to do is remove that anxiety and to help them to understand how they can really make sustainable changes. So I think in terms of where we are with autism, we're in many ways we're at the foothills, and this is a very new area, and we, relative to other areas, we need to build awareness, and we need to build intent to act, and we need to build action as well. And there's a huge opportunity to do that within the context of this review, to remove barriers to employers, to make employment more accessible to autistic people. And there are very simple things we can do by providing practical recommendations around how we can improve recruitment processes, how we can make sure that reasonable adjustments are made and are more accessible, that autistic people are retained within employment, and to ensure that they're actually ultimately thriving as well. So I think what we want to see is that evidence being implemented, being made available to organisations. I think also what we need to do, what we need to help create for this review is a cycle of progress. And I guess I talked earlier about a legacy of change as well, so making sure we're creating that cycle too, a cycle of learning as well, I think is absolutely key, because that will be what helps us to build momentum and to help us in a continuous way reduce the inequalities in terms of access to employment. That we know that autistic that autistic people are facing. And I think another key thing within this is hopefully we can create a more personalised understanding for every what every autistic person needs to, because we know that every autistic person is different and has different support needs. So beginning to create models which will help us to understand that, I think, would be really, really key.
That's wonderful. James, thank you so much. James, you're there currently, aren't you?
Yes.
Lovely. Lovely to see you, and thank you for your time on that day. How's the review going?
Going really, really well. We've hosted a series of roundtables with Sir Robert, speaking to charities, speaking to organisations, speaking directly to people who have lived experience as well, speaking across key colleagues within government. And I think there's actually quite a significant degree of consensus as well around the way forward. So we're hearing a lot around the fact that really autism, as I said earlier, is at the foothills in terms of awareness and understanding. And I think there's a real key parallel here with the area of mental health that we can really draw upon and really draw into the idea that in mental health, we used to talk about mental health being about bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. Now we talk about mental health being about everyone. And I think that parallel really comes through in these roundtables here, that actually if we make this a neurodiversity-wide conversation, actually it becomes much more inclusive. And I guess that reflects the comments which have been made in this webinar to date.
Wonderful. We've actually got one on the 20th of June. If there are companies out there that would like to get involved, it's in person in West London, and we are going to do a Zoom link for it. It's 10 till 11 with Sir Robert as well as part of this, because we really want to try and get to as many companies as we can. This needs to be the year of a weather change, and we need to have that as kind of an action point from this. We need to be following what the Tories are doing, as in not the Tories, sorry, as in Tory Roberts is doing, just in case anyone mistakes my allegiances there.
There is another event on 21st of June, which is a transition autism into employment, and I'm just put a link into the chat so that you can obviously follow that as well. It's a wonderful event attended by several hundred people every year. So hopefully, if you're interested, get in touch.
I think, James, I think the learning from this at the moment is that actually the reality is you need to look at your recruitment practices. You need to make sure that you've got policies and procedures in place that will allow for soft adjustments to be made, because invariably that's all you need to do, is to maybe flex some hours, maybe have some sensory calming space for an individual, maybe have some training going on with the existing team members to make sure that person is absorbed into the team in the best way possible. And we're really talking low risk, low cost here, aren't we?
Well, I mean, I think it's important to recognize that autistic people need different things, and so there are, of course, some people who all have higher support needs, but there are mechanisms in place, in particular to address that. But yeah, this is very achievable. It's about support. I think a huge part of this is improving awareness and understanding within organisations, helping to build their intent to take action, and then supporting them when they do take action as well. And the thing that we can do for this review, as people who are and there's many people who are experts in this area, and the thing that we can really powerfully do is to share that knowledge and understanding in a digestible way for organisations and employers to help support them benefit from autistic people's talents.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if we actually heard on the news some really good news about how many of the 1 million outstanding vacancies we've got have been filled through these kind of initiatives over the next 6 to 12 months? Because it can be done, you just have to focus on it. And that focus and that conscious level of recruitment is something that most of us don't do. I mean, I audit recruitment practices for Microlink, and I'll often see the old job description taken out of the filing cabinet, because I am that old, and find that nobody's reviewed it for the last 15 years. So yes, there is some input. Yes, there is some work that people have to do. And it's really important that you think about the long-term benefits to your business. We've had Tori Roberts from EY talk about, I mean, that's a huge firm with over 400,000 employees around the world, saying this makes a difference. We've had Michelle, a smaller company with 23 brewhouse and kitchens, which sound fabulous. I'm definitely coming for the gin day. We've had Claire talking about 156 odd sites around the UK. Are you going to be one of the 157, 158, 159 that are going to take advantage of somebody else paying the bill and you getting really good quality, wonderful staff? We've got just a few minutes. Is there any questions before we go? Where we've got information from the people that have talked today, we're going to pass that on in a resource page. There are a lot of events. James, I don't know whether you've actually got them in a single space that we can pass that on, but if not, we'll try and pull them together for you. But please, if you do one thing, employ just one person. If we all employed just one person that isn't currently working, the impact it has on their family, on themselves, on the community that they live in, and then in the wider community of all of us, because they're working and actually contributing, what a wonderful world it would be. And on that happy note, I'm going to say thank you to all our speakers, Michelle, Claire and Tori at NASA. Thank you for joining. Thank you, James. And Sir Robert, it was lovely that you popped in. Thank you so much. See you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.